guys, welcome back to the emngee channel. I'm Monday, and today we're going to be making some strawberry jam for you guys. And in that strawberry jam, all you need is strawberries, sugar, and some lemon juice. Really simple recipe, only 3 ingredients, and I'm going to show you step by step how to do it. I'll be right back. Hey guys, we're back. And so I have about 2 containers of strawberries here. And they're washed. Make sure you wash all your fruits and vegetables. But I washed all the strawberries, and I have some sugar here. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna take off the stem of the strawberry and just cut them in half. So we're gonna do all that to the strawberries, and then after we do that to the strawberries, we're gonna put the strawberries back in the bowl, and we're gonna put 2 cups of sugar in it. So I'm just gonna start off just cutting the strawberries. Just cut these off. You're just going to throw this out, and you're just going to cut them in half. Just like that. So I'm just going to keep cutting these, and then we'll be right back, and I'll show you how I put the sugar on the strawberries. Alright guys, we're back. So we have the cut strawberries, just like I did. And we're going to put, so before I get ahead of myself, I bought 2 containers of strawberries, which is 1 pound each. So when making jam, usually you have to have like the same ratio with the weight of this and the cups of sugar that you put in. So if you have 2 cups of 2 pounds of strawberries, you put 2 cups of sugar, and so on and so forth. But I'm actually gonna put that much in here. But usually when I make jam, I don't use that ratio because I personally feel like it's just too much sugar for my taste. But we're gonna put 2 cups of sugar in this. So we're just gonna, this is 1 cup of sugar we're gonna put in here, and we're just gonna put another cup of sugar. This is all before I even cook anything. We're gonna put another cup of sugar, and we're just going to toss it around. Now, when I toss it around in the strawberries, and we're gonna actually leave it, we're gonna have it just sit for about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long. But while I leave it, the juices from the strawberries are going to come out. The sugars allow the juices from the strawberries to come out. You'll see, it'll like look more soupy after time goes on. So I'm just gonna toss the sugar around, just make sure it's all coated, and just let it sit. Just let it sit. You don't have to put it in like the fridge or anything. Just let it sit, and you'll slowly see like the juices coming out of the strawberries. Alright, so I will probably let this sit about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so, and then we will be back, and I'll show you the next step. Alright guys, and we're back. The strawberries ended up soaking for about 2 hours. You can see the amount of liquid in here. Soaked for, 2 hours. So after all of this, we're actually going to take 1/2 of a lemon, and we're going to just squeeze it in there. I'm just going to put it in this squeezer so none of the seeds go through. I'm just gonna put that in there. You could have put it before or after, whichever. It's just to preserve the color when you're cooking it, and even afterwards when we actually can it. It keeps the color. So I'm just gonna put this to the side for a second because I wanted to mention to you guys the process of canning. So we have this canner here, and we have this little thing at the bottom. And I use these jars. These are half pint. These are half pint jars that I use, and that I end up using for the jam. And when you're canning the jars, you can't have the jars touch the bottom of the pot because it will break. So we usually put a cover at the bottom of so that's what's touching. If you don't have these, there's rings that you can just get and just kind of stack them. So instead of having this, if you don't have this, you can just put these at the bottom all around and just have the jars just sitting on it this way. Just have the jar sitting on it this way if you don't have something like this. But it's always good to have something like this just so, you know, it's safer. You don't want the jars to be breaking or anything like that. So usually with canning jams, you have to put it in a water bath, which basically means that you fill the pot up with water until it's about maybe an inch over the top of the actual jars, and then you cover it and you have it boil for about, I'm going to say maybe 15 minutes or so, and then you just take them out and then the jars start to actually seal and pop. So I'll show you the rest of that when we actually get to it. So I didn't do it, but I'm going to do it now. I'm just going to fill this up with water and just make sure that it's enough water so the tops are at least an inch above the jar tops, because it takes a while for the water to at least boil. So it's good to at least start doing this now. And also, while this is actually boiling and you put this at the bottom, you have to make sure that your tops are sterilized. I usually buy these. These are the lids and the bands. I get this from Target. It's about less than $5, and it comes with 12 lids and 12 rings like this. So it comes with a lid and a ring, 12 of them. And with canning, the rubber on this helps seal it so it lasts a really, really long time. So the rubber on the lid seals, when you can it, it seals the jars really good, so there's no oxygen going in there, so it's able to be preserved for a long time. But after you open the jar and you're trying to can again, you cannot can with the same lid. You can can with the same rings, that's fine, but when you're opening it, usually like the rubber is usually broken in some sort, so that broken rubber will not seal it again. So that's why I buy these, because when I open the jars and I want to use the jars again, you can use the jars again, you can use the rings again, but you can't use these again. I think that they do sell just the lids. They sell just the lids if that's what you want to do, but I just happen to just get both just to get them. So when canning, to make sure that you boil your water first, just because it does take a long time, but make sure that you have enough water that it is an inch above the actual lids of the jars, and also make sure that these are sterilized. So I usually just put both of these like in a pot of water, or just boil some water and just pour hot water over it, making sure that no bacteria is on it that it doesn't need to be, and everything like that. So alright, so while your water is actually boiling, we're going to cook the strawberries. So you have the strawberries, you have the liquid and everything. So we're just gonna put the strawberries in a decent pot, because it does boil like a lot, and you don't want it to boil over if you're just gonna use a small pot. So we're just gonna put the strawberries in this pot here. Alright, and I put it on a high heat for now. But when it gets to boiling, I'm gonna put it like on like a medium heat. So I put it on a high heat for now, and I'm just gonna wait until it boils. When it boils, I'll be back and I'll show you what else I do. Alright guys, we're back. And now this is actually at a hard boil right now. Okay, it's foaming up really good. And at this point, you want to just constantly be stirring it. I actually turned the volume of the heat down to about like medium. So I'm just going to constantly keep stirring it. The foam will go away like eventually. So pretty much just keep stirring it. You don't want to not stir it, because it could actually just burn at the bottom. So you just want to constantly keep stirring it, and I will be back in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. So another thing is that when jam or jellies are being made, they usually put pectin or gelatin in the jams. I personally don't do that, just because it's just extra preservatives. I just don't want in my jams or jellies. So with that being said, it takes longer to make the jam or jelly when you don't put that preservative in there. So that's why it's gonna take you longer to make it. Actually, it's gonna take me longer to make this because I just choose not to, which I don't mind. I mean, if you're not willing to, you know, I guess stand here for another 30 minutes to cook it, then you can use pectin, that's fine. But me, I just personally just choose not to. That's just something I just choose not to do. But this is pretty much like halfway done. You could probably see on the rim like where it's cooked and everywhere it's been cooking. The liquid has gone down more. So the more that you cook it and the more it thickens up, the more that the liquid kind of goes down. So you kind of have less and less. So if you're trying to make a big batch, you might want to get more pounds of strawberries or more pounds of whatever fruits that you're trying to get, because it does cook down. Pretty much all of them do pretty cook down, especially with the sugar content, and it makes it thick to become a jam. So I'll just be back when these are actually ready to can. Alright guys, we are back, and maybe about 20 minutes or so after the last one, this is how the jam turned out. Now, a way to figure out if it's ready or not, you put either a plate or a spoon or both in the freezer. So these are frozen, and you would usually, I'm just going to use the plate, you would just put a little dollop on here, and then you would just put your finger through it, and just usually if it stays or not, then you just really know that it's jam. Also, I don't mind chunks of strawberries in my jam, but if you don't want chunks of strawberries in your jam, you can actually just cut them down more. You could just cut them down more when you cut them at the beginning, when you soak them in the sugar itself. But they cook, most of it pretty much cooks down, but there are some chunks in there which I don't mind. So we're just gonna start canning it. So what I did is I took these jars, they're actually hot, and I put them in the oven because you don't want to put hot jam in cold jars because they, you know, could break. So you just kind of want to keep everything at the same temperature. The water hot, you want to keep the jars hot, you want to keep the lids hot and sanitized. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, oh also, so there, this is like a little canning kit, so this is just a little funnel to put on top of it, and this is to grab the jars like when they're hot, and this is just to measure it and just to make sure there's no air bubbles in between, and this is a magnet to get the lids because they're hot and you don't want to put your hands in there. And so what we're gonna do, alright, so we're just gonna start putting the jam into the jars. So I'm just gonna take this and just, you have to make sure that you fill it up all the way. Okay. And good thing we have this funnel because it can get messy. So you're just gonna fill these up all the way about, I think probably about like a ½ inch or so from the rim. And you're just gonna take this off, and you're pretty much just gonna take the end of this stick and just put it in, just to make sure that there are no air bubbles or anything. And so you're just gonna put it all the way down, just make sure everything is good. And then you're gonna take some paper with some water and just wipe the rims, because you just want to make sure that there's a good seal. You want to make sure there's a good seal. So you're just going to wipe the rim. If there's any excess jam, the jars aren't as hot, so I'm able to hold it now. But just make sure you wipe the rims so it's able to seal, because you don't want to go through all this and it doesn't seal. It's kind of annoying. Okay? And then I'm just going to take a lid from here it's a magnet on here, so I'm able to do that. And then take a band, and you just do it tight enough. You don't want to do it too tight. And then you just kind of go on to the next one. I didn't know how many jars I would need. I did 3, but I might just only need 2 jars, to be honest with you. I figured I would only need 2 jars. But unless you're doing them in smaller jars, then yeah, you would obviously need more than 2. But these are just half pints. But they do sell smaller jars. But I usually put my jams in these jars. But like my butters, I tend to put in the smaller ones because I just feel like I should just put those in the smaller ones. But whatever preference that you prefer, it's up to you. Okay. This one might be a little full. Let's see. No, it's fine. So I'm just gonna kind of just go on the edges and just make sure that there are no air bubbles. And also at the other end of this is like a measure, so you can just make sure it says like 1 inch, ½ inch, 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch. So you can just measure to see if it's just the proper measurements, so it's able to seal properly. So we're just gonna dip this in some water and just make sure that these don't have any excess, which I know I put on edges. So I'm just gonna clean that off, and then I'm just gonna put the lids on them. Make sure that the lids are sterilized. I just boil them in some water, nothing extra or anything like that. So just kind of get them a little stubborn, and just put that on there. And also just finger tight. And also we're just gonna put this at the very bottom, so the actual jars are not physically touching the bottom, and it'll just sink down all the way to the bottom. And then we're just gonna take these, and I don't think I usually put these touching, but you just use this, and you just, as this is still, you know, warm, you just put it all the way down, touching, and you see that the water just literally just goes right above the jars. That's what you want. You don't want it to not be above the jars. You want it to just be just above the jars. And you just put it in just like that, and you just let it, cover it, let it boil for about 10-15 minutes. After you let it boil, you turn off the heat, you let it sit in the water for another 10 minutes, take them out and leave them for another 24 hours. Don't touch them. You just want to make sure that these tops seal. You do not want to do all this work for it not to seal. Don't bother it. And yeah, so we'll be back after. Alright guys, we're back. So the jam is done. I took it out the water, and actually as soon as I took it out the water, this one ended up popping. So it's literally completely sealed. This one isn't finished yet, but you don't want to touch it or anything. Just leave it to cool for 24 hours. We do have a label maker, so I usually just label it what it is and the date. So I can just keep it out, room temperature for however long, or just eat it right away. So that's pretty much that. I have the strawberry jam. I hope you guys liked the video. Just don't forget to like this video. Comment any ideas that you want us to make, anything, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye.